Hi everyone, it's Niall from windowsnoob.com, and today we're going to talk about a new release of the Migrate to the Cloud app. I blogged about this nearly a year ago, and there was 3 parts to that. Here you can see what the app looks like, and I even did a video showing the migration. To cut a long story short, this migrates a domain joined SCCM managed or config manager managed device to Azure AD joined and Intune managed, and makes it a Windows Autopilot device as well. So a lot of magic going on and a lot of cool things happening. It was cool back then, but there was a step where we joined Azure AD and we expected the user to click things and put in their credentials, and users being users, you know, if we want them to click on button A, they'll click on button B. So we had to remove that and replace it with a bulk enrollment token, which is what the new version is about. But before I do that, or show you that, let's show you what the old version looked like. Here's part 2 of 3. And here is the launching Azure AD join. And this is where the user would be prompted to put in their password. Click on sign in. Yet another chance for failure. And here they are prompted to click on join. But as you can see, cancel is highlighted. So because we can't force that join ability using PowerShell, the next best option is to use a bulk enrollment package, which is what the new version of this tool is using. But there is a downside to the bulk enrollment package token method. There's 2 downsides. There's a few downsides. One of the downsides is once you create this package, it allows anyone that uses that package to enroll multiple devices. Secondly, it's time limited. So it can, if you use the ADK version, it'll be time limited to 1 month, the bulk enrollment package. If you use the Windows Store version, it'll be 6 months. And thirdly, the primary user of the device is set to null in Intune. So to solve that, I wrote a HTTP trigger, which I will blog, and here it is. And basically we call that during part 3, and what it does is it takes the UPN of the user and the device ID and converts the user to the primary user within Intune. So now you have a rough idea of what the new version is supposed to do. Let's see it in action. So here is a domain joined computer. Let's log on to that. All right, so here's a domain joined computer, which we've logged on to. I've already launched Migrate to the Cloud. It's a new version 1.5.30 something. And as you can see, we've got Software Center, we've got the Config Manager client. This one is connected to Technical Preview 2303. Not that that matters, but it's the latest and greatest, and that's what it's running. And as you can see in the background, I've got some files on the desktop. We can even create one just as part of this demo. We'll call it demo folder, and let's stick in something here just to prove that the whole thing works. Let's create a little text file. Windows Autopilot sweep back demo. All right. Okay, so now we've got everything in place. Let's do what the user is supposed to do, which is run the app from Software Center. This is the available version of the app where we ask them to go in and migrate themselves. The next version will be a required version where they're not prompted. They're only given deferral options. So let's go ahead with this and assume we're the user and we're doing it in our own time. They get a traditional warning message. They're told use the UPN, that is it there, and they click OK, and that starts the migration. Take a look at the time, 1:09 p.m. on the clock at least, and off it goes. This is a 3-part migration. Takes about 20 minutes or less in all my testing at least. And I've tested this on real and virtual machines, and the virtual machines I've tested it with have been Hyper-V and virtual or VMware. No real difference there. Just make sure that you have a virtual TPM created and enable secure boot, especially if you have compliance policies in Intune which are based upon encryption, BitLocker encryption, of course. So now it's removing the SCCM client agent. There's nothing really different about this part versus what we saw in the original one that I released. There are a lot of improvements in addition to the Azure AD join method, and that is I've cleaned up the code in terms of what it logs. So the logging is a lot better. It shows you which part you're in, which section. So the logging is a lot better, and when everything is done, it will delete what is not needed. So it will remove the scripts and remove the registry keys. I intend to keep developing this application as time moves on because we're using it. So any feedback that I get from windowsnoob.com members is appreciated. Got some today from some users. And one of the comments was, let's see. Here we go. This guy here, he said, thanks for sharing it with us. I had to modify it to get it to work when the OS language is different from English, the administrators group. Great, and he offered a little bit of code there, which I will implement in a later release. So that's cool. Maybe even time to start sticking my code on GitHub. Who knows? But let's go back a little bit, see where we're at. So it's rebooted after the first part of part 1. And it's automatically logging in as Autopilot Sweetback, the user. It's a user recreate, part 1. And here is part 2, and this one is different to the original release in that the joining Azure AD step, instead of prompting the end user to do things and log in and click MFA, it's not going to prompt at all. It's purely going to automate this using the bulk enrollment package method that you create. So you're going to create the token. You're going to attach the 2 files in the right place in this script, encode them, and we're good to go. And I've included some information. Is it here? No, let's have a look on the server. It's going to keep going. Go onto the server for a sec. And if we look here, you'll see that I included some READMEs. This one here explains the process flow of the 3 parts. And the next one, the README, tells you what to do. Create a bulk enrollment token. Here's one method of doing it. There are many. You can Google it yourself and find out which one you like the best. You can use the Microsoft Store version, or you can use the ADK version. That's up to you. And then you have to create a new HTTP trigger to change the primary user. I include the code in another file. And you have to finally then copy the bulk enroll package files, cat and ppkg to the encode files folder, edit your company logo, edit your variables obviously, and run the encode.ps1 to create the new text files. And here is the trigger code, and that's it. And I even include which API permissions you need to change, and the ones that are really important are these two for this. Okay, so let's go back to the device that we're migrating from domain joined, SCCM managed, to Azure AD joined, Intune managed. So now instead of logging on with my domain credentials, I log on with my UPN. And it should start with part 3. It is a 3-part process. The migration should take about 20 minutes. Doesn't delete any users' data, which of course is great for the end users. And let's do my MFA. For Windows Hello for Business. And I'm going to enter my PIN. And there we go. And now you will see the status page for part 3. And the new step here is setting primary user, 3rd step. And that's where the script itself calls the HTTP trigger. And it does that with 2 things, the Intune device ID and the user name. And it converts it uses the Intune device ID and the username to create the user ID to change the primary user. And as you can see, there was very little that the user had to do other than start the migration, click the 2 checkboxes, read the warning, click OK, and then log in with their UPN at the end of part 2. That was it. That was all they had to do. Everything else was automated. So while we're waiting for that to continue, let's look at the groups that we have in Azure. We've got an autopilot suite back completed, and we've got convert device to Windows Autopilot, and that one has already added the device we're migrating, and this one will show up soon enough. Oh, we can see it's moved on, setting the primary user, cleaning up things, and completing migration. So we're nearly done. I guess at this point it's adding the device to the Azure AD group. It's not there yet. Ah, there it is. So we should see this complete very shortly. And there we go. So it has now completed the migration totally. And we have one last message, which has changed from the original release. Congratulations, you've migrated your PC to cloud management. Please note that over the next hour, your computer will continue installing policy and apps. Yep, whatever. And then it also says, please click OK to log off and log on again using your Windows Hello for Business logon method. And we configured a PIN. But you could have real hardware and you could have configured face recognition or a fingerprint biometric method. But in this case, it's a VM, so we just used PIN. So let's log on using that. And as you can see, it knows who I am. logging on. And at the moment, we don't have our files from OneDrive, but they're coming. If we look at the start menu, what we should see is, there it is. We have a nice start menu from Intune with all the apps that we had previously. And in addition to that, we now have Company Portal. And if we look at the background, we should see that over the next couple of minutes, without me doing anything, OneDrive will magically start populating files, which of course we want to see because that would be a cool demo. Yes, while we're waiting for OneDrive to do its thing, let's click on Company Portal and just verify that the user that the device is showing up correctly and that this user is the primary user. Now, normally when you use the bulk enrollment method, the device will show up as being a shared device. And as you can see, this one is not shared, which means that this user that is logged on is the primary user of that device. You can confirm that by going into Intune, which we will do here. Let's go here. Oh, that's Azure. Here's Intune. Let's find the device. I think it's this one. It's compliant already, which is really cool. And if you look here, the primary user is me. And that's fantastic. So the trigger does that magic. Okay, so I'll just pause the video here for a little bit. I'm not going to do anything other than continue videoing this VM because I know OneDrive will kick off. It's just a matter of time. Sometimes it's immediate. Sometimes it happens before I log in. It's almost like it's magic. But typically, because I'm recording video, it's decided to just take as long as it possibly can to populate those files on the desktop. And actually, there we go. 20 minutes in. What did I say at the start of the video? The migration will take approximately 20 minutes, and we're 20 minutes in. Fantastic. So there we have it. Files have magically appeared on the desktop. I think we created a folder. Yes, this one here. And a text file should be in there. And there it is. Windows Autopilot Sweetback demo. So one last thing that I forgot to mention was the logs have changed. So instead of being in C Windows temp, Sweetback, by default now they're going to be in C program data and the company name. The reason for that is so that anyone can read them without having to elevate. And as you can see here, the only thing that we have here, apart from these three files, are the log files. So you can open any of those log files and see what's happening in the migration, which is fantastic. And remember I said that the logging has improved. Well, as you can see here, it has. It's broken down into the part, and we've got sections, and it's all very clear. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed watching this view of the new release of Migrate to the Cloud or Autopilot 3-Pack. I'll blog the changes and how to implement it soon. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Bye.